Welcome to Red Pill Diaries. So today, I've noticed myself not going down rabbit holes, but getting too emotionally invested in my opinion based upon discernment of a rabbit hole. Right. So I wanted to do a kind of general video on uh, a few things. One is something that the guy from Quantum Conscience says a bit about what's your threshold. I think it's important to determine, just in life in general, whenever you see anything, if something were to be false, what would your threshold be? How much would you have to, how much would you have to see or have to realize before you'd say, okay, this goes into the bullshit category, or this goes into the, yeah, I really don't know now. I'm not yes or no. Because what I can see from pretty much all the major conspiracy theories out there, the ones that are most almost definitely true or most definitely true, is that they all have fodder for both sides. So you can take things from it that would satisfy both sides of the argument, and that's why whenever you look at these things, take every little lie that you can see, every flaw, every mistake that you can uncover, look at it in its own merit. So when I've been kind of having an unintentional debate about a friend. I was actually asking his opinion because I thought that he might know people, and he did, about the New Zealand, the Christchurch mosque shooting. And because other friends who live in the South Island, the very same island that happened, one who actually lives in Kaiapoi, which is a part of Christchurch, that they don't believe it. Another one that lives in Nelson, further up. But anyway, they don't believe it. And it was interesting to me to find that, well, most people in New Zealand believe it, right? But when I hear from people who are more discerning and people who aren't suckers of the system, and some are against it and some are with it, and you've got to, when you're asking them for their opinions because you trust their opinion, you've also got to remember, like myself, I was suckered by 9/11 for a long time because I was looking at the things I could see. In 9/11, just to quickly gloss over it, I had my head in a telecoms cupboard back then, working in a company in telecommunications house, or Tele House, in East London, and I was about to pull a circuit. It's called a 2 megabit circuit, or an E1, and they carry about 30 to 31 telephone calls, depending if you're using signaling, but I won't get into that. And I put an analyzer on it, and I was about to pull the circuit to check there's no traffic on it first, put the analyzer on. You can see the 30 to 31 channels. You can cycle between them and listen into the phone calls. By law, you're not meant to listen more than a few seconds. But I quickly noticed, boom, out of nowhere, the thing filled up with telephone calls, and every phone call was saying pretty much the same thing. That's what I remember at the time. And what I also remember was trying to get onto BBC World and couldn't see that it was just completely chock-a-block. We had an ultra-fast connection. I was in a data center at the time, so we had an ultra-fast connection, but I still couldn't get into BBC. Everything was like, obviously their servers were maxed out. This is obviously 2001. And we've also got, so I could call the guys over in Hudson Street, which is the other office that we have in New York, and I'm hearing what they're saying as well, because I could call through our own telecommunications switch. There's no overloading the lines because we've got what they call STM1 circuits. It's like a 16 gig circuit across to 1.6 gigabit circuit across to New York. So we can push our own telecoms traffic through. So I've already set up the system so that our phone calls went through this telecom switch, so we didn't have to pay British Telecom to terminate our calls, right? Sorry for all the background bullshit here, but I just thought I'll frame my experience of the situation. So next thing I did was I called the guys in New York, and they were like, oh, they were like all hectic all over the place. Yeah, we gotta get out, and we're just gonna get out of here. Who knows what else is gonna happen? Blah blah blah. Check for people they know. And I kind of inserted it into my head through a mixture of watching the news about the airplane situation and about about what people saw at the time, and also, and this is the real thing that I want to get into here, also the emotional guilt that got transferred to everybody who may decide to question anything. How dare you even question? I know someone who was there and blah, blah, blah. Right? Well, yeah, I know people who were there too. And it's a human compulsion. This is just a fact, right? People will always, you've probably done it yourself. I know I have. I'm not saying I'm any different, right? If you're near something that happens, a major event, it is a human compulsion to say, yeah, I was there, and to draw reference to somehow build you in. It's the egotistical, narcissistic nature of every human being to do so, right? Very few people who have, learned a way through this in life and become a bit wiser. That you won't try insert yourself somehow in the story and relate it to you, right? So I was guilty of that for a few years. I started doubting 9/11. It was a long time. It was probably 10 or so years ago, maybe 12 years ago. It was a Russian guy who was a nuclear scientist. And he was talking about inbuilt destruction capability of buildings over a certain height in all major cities in the world, even countries that were nuclear free. And it was meant to be, and this is why apparently the term ground zero was used, because ground zero is the dictionary definition, you can check it yourself, of the point directly above a nuclear detonation. And the term ground zero started getting used a couple of days before. Now, I'm not going to get into all the other little rabbit holes about the dancing Jews and all this sort of stuff, but I'm just going to look at the obvious, and I've never gone beyond that. I'll go to the obvious of asking my friends. I've got a few friends around the world in different places who are materials scientists, architects, structural engineers. So in the US, China, all over the place, right? So I have asked them all, and I can't find any scientist in that kind of realm who believes what happened to Building 7, right? And if you look at the mainstream narrative always blocks out Building 7. It focuses on the Twin Towers. It focuses on the Pentagon. The Pentagon story is unbelievable as itself. The fact of, rock isn't as solid as steel girders. So, the forgetting about, people say aluminum, but it's not really aluminium. It's actually steel tubing they use in planes. It's called aviation steel. But anyway, it's a tubular thing. So to say that tubular steel can cut through steel girders, that's the laughable part. But let's forget about that. Let's forget about the what degrees Celsius and the tests on YouTube that show one guy, for example, bringing steel up to glowing temperature. Now, those girders were not glowing, and nor could they be taken to glowing temperature, because the dissipation I won't even get into it. The dissipation of heat up and down would prevent that from happening. But let's just completely forget about that situation and look at what we know, and that is a building next door to the Twin Towers effectively fell in sympathy for the buildings next door, because the only way to make it fall, even if office fires could get hot enough to melt the steel for the first time in living history of all mankind, the steel construction would fall through an office fire. It would have to be done so at key points around the building simultaneously, and basically fanned like you would do in a furnace to melt metals, right? A smelter, in order to fall in the way that it fell. So every structural engineer who doesn't work for NIST kind of agrees on that one, and materials scientists as well. Actually, one of my friends, we were arguing about this recently, he was saying, look, I'm not only a materials scientist, I work in heat exchange systems. This is, he does things like the integrity of materials under heat stress. So it's his exact area, you know what I mean? And my other friend, who's a very smart guy, he's a principal programmer out in the States, and what I could see was him being emotionally invested. And this is where you get the issues, where someone becomes emotionally invested. There is no point arguing. I had the same thing this morning with a friend in New Zealand, because he had an emotional connection. He's a guy who's very logical, and he's a guy who has actually brought up a lot of stuff to me in the past about other situations in the world, especially political stuff. He is a politician himself, by the way, or was at least, and still very active in the political world. I've noticed him kind of leaning towards some of the narratives of the opposite party in that country, which he would never have done in the past. But then again, it does show that he's open to the other side, which is, I trust the guy's opinion. I trust his opinion when he tells me that he knows firsthand of the devastation that was caused, the people who died. Although he does admit that only one person was a New Zealander, the rest of them were foreigners and didn't have much links to the local community. That, to me, glaring alarm, as glaring as the alarm of the actual assailant who actually went to Israel shortly before the situation that happened, which always makes me think, Now, I only questioned in that particular situation the I didn't question everything that the other people, or well, one of the other people were questioning. I did ask the opinion of the other person, the Nelson, what he thought, and he was saying, nah, things just don't add up. I haven't really delved into it with him, but basically, from what I saw in the video, now the first time I watched it, I didn't really want to watch the rest of it. I didn't want to give evil energy more. I didn't want to perpetuate evil energy. I don't like to watch animals being tortured when people say me that shit either. If I can't change it, I don't really want to see it in most cases, right? So not only did I not watch it, I also deleted it from my phone. All right, that's the first video. Now I'm pretty sure it wasn't 16 minutes long. This one has the full length video, but it is paused in places. The guy narrates on top of it, which I do and I don't like. He has added things in there like the blood squib, about guns that you can buy that are both airsoft, which I've seen and used, and ones that are a kind of hybrid where they'll eject a real looking cartridge. I hadn't actually seen those before, and there's probably a reason why I would have dismissed all this if I hadn't seen those. They do exist, right? It made me watch further. I've seen enough videos. I even sent my other friend on Instagram a video of my other friend in South Africa with his kid, his young kid shooting his AR-15. How much they kick, the noise they make. I didn't bother digging through my own videos because I've got quite a lot of guns in America, and any of or finding any of my uploads I've ever done in the past, taking my dad out to shoot for a 50 caliber Desert Eagle, or shooting my 30-30 Winchester, things like that, right? But I know how these things sound in video. I know how they sound on a shit video with a shit mic. I know how they sound on a good video with a good mic. And when you put it on a decent stereo system, how it should sound. These sound like a paintball gun or an airsoft gun. The guy does shoot rounds through. My friend said maybe the gun gets jammed and that was a squib fire. Funny enough, the term for a misfiring bullet's also called a squib. You get a blood bag that comes out, that's called a squib as well. So when a bullet misfires, right, one thing is in the case of an automatic or a sort of semi-automatic, it would tend to make a recoil not occur properly, probably get a jammed round. You can even get the slug jammed in the barrel, and that would be extremely dangerous if you fire upon one that's happened to. You wouldn't go shooting again, especially an experienced gunsman, hunter, whatever. So this kind of makes me doubt things, but you actually hear the gun you hear the gun fire in the same way that it fired when it breaks the window on the left-hand side of the car. He shoots a couple of rounds through the windshield. It doesn't even make a hole. It does make a little bit of a cloud, the cloud that you would expect from the CO2 cartridge, because they actually make a little bit of a cloud when you fire them. The gun doesn't make muzzle flash every time, but it did one or two times. The AR-15 when it got shot, I think it was just one time. That could be added in later on. The narrative was that this was streamed, although there's very little evidence that it was actually streamed. So, to me, the Occam's razor in that situation would be that this was actually a purposeful low quality video that was later on uploaded and shared to appear as if it was something that was live streamed. But then again, someone can bring the evidence and prove me wrong on that one, and I'm always open to it, right? But when I see things that support narratives, and I see governments and people that try to shut down debate, especially using emotion. Now, because debate should never be shut down with emotion. It should only ever be shut down with more debate, more facts, more rationality, not how dare you, people suffered and blah blah, I had a friend and blah. When I hear these things, I just think, what you're basically doing is hanging a label on something. It's the same thing as when you hang a label and say conspiracy theorist or whatever it might be. You're basically you're hanging a virtue signal, or effectively what you're doing is hanging emotional shaming upon a person. And we see this being used quite a lot in politics, right? For example, the elections in the USA, when they talk about Al Gore not contesting George Bush, as he should have fucking done, they say, because he's more decent, and you're not decent because Trump is going, I haven't even got a dog in the fight. I'm just saying that the person that wants to block information, your CNNs and your Twitters of the world, your Jack Dorsey's kind of people of the world, you have to question their motives, because they're the person who wants to block rational debate. I'm always against the people who want to do that. The church did this for centuries. Politicians have done this for decades, and maybe actually centuries as well. So I'm always automatically against the narrative of the person who is blocking information by making a cloud of some sort, whether that be suppression of information or full-on censorship, versus someone who wants full clarity. And in business, I've uncovered a lot of, actually in life, just scammers and things like that. I've uncovered a lot of grifters and scammers, like high-end scammers to the tunes of hundreds of thousands. I've outed these people in the past by, first of all, instinct, and choosing to question. When I see psychology at play, like people who, man, don't you trust me? No, of course I trust you. You carry on doing your thing. Oh, he's made me feel even bad at even questioning him now. Always question in that case, because what that person's doing is using psychological tricks to make you go against your own instinct. And in almost every case, you'll find that person is a dodgy motherfucker, right? So in this case, I saw the same thing. Hey, I could still be wrong. But in the case of this New Zealand situation, I'm going to say that this could be like every other false flag is, and that is, like, let's say Sandy Hook and everything else. Or when I say false flag, I'm talking about potential false flag, because I don't know for sure. I'm not going to say I do. But I'm going to say is, when things don't seem real, they don't seem real for a good reason. And usually they have enough fuel to serve both sides. And I think this is highly intentional. It is to, one, to mock people. They've got to mock both sides. They're mocking the side who's affected. They're mocking the side who doesn't believe. Like, look, I'm waving the truth and all your friends don't believe it. That's effectively what it is, right? So in the case of this one, I would say that there's enough. I'm not getting into who died or who didn't die or who was mourning at a funeral. It's irrelevant. What is irrelevant is that I know guns inside out, right? And I know how they sound, I know how they look, I know things like how often muzzle flash should occur on average when you shoot an AR-15, for example, especially one with a fairly short barrel. And how much kickback they'll have. Whether you can shoot a shotgun inside a car with all the windows up, give me a break. You know how much pressure that produces? I mean, anyway. So you shoot a shotgun 3 times in a car with all the windows up, you're going to know about it. If it doesn't make a hole in the windscreen with 2 shots, you're going to know about that too. That's pretty strange that a 12 gauge shotgun doesn't make a hole in the window. It's strange that it should make a little bit of a cloud of gas, which could happen off of a normal round, but it would be a different kind of cloud. The way that CO2 kind of rolls afterwards forward, and it looks a certain way. It dissipates extremely quickly. Not the same with normal gunpowder, right? The sound. I mean, the sound is just going to blow your ears out. Never mind, not sound like a airsoft gun. If you used a suppressor on an AR-15 or anything, any one of those high velocity hunting rounds, with the basically rifle shaped bullets, I don't even know if you can buy subsonic rounds for those, to be honest with you, because there's a lot of gunpowder in there. I haven't actually looked for that before. I know you can buy subsonic rounds for like things like 9mm 22s, and they can be fairly quiet if you have a silencer on it, right? My 22 is really quiet. If you put a subsonic round in that with a silencer, it does sound like a little bit like an airsoft gun, right? AR-15, not from my experience. Not 300, 308, 3030. You put a suppressor on anything like that, it still sounds like it's a proper heavy thud. And no noise correction, as my friend was trying to suggest, can actually sort that out. From my experience of years of watching videos like this, never seen anything like that, right? The action, look, if I think about meat sacks shooting, like stuff I've done in America, shooting stuff with a cloth around it, the action that you get, maybe not on the front side, but definitely in the back side, is different from what I've seen there. Clothes flying around, not making any holes whatsoever, no puncturing, no charring. You know what I mean? I just think there's a smorgasbord of errors, but at the same time, it could have been something that's mixed. For all we know, the whole thing could have been shot He could have gone round and actually shot heaps of people and gone back with a real gun. He could have used a mixture of the two, just to go ha ha and play both sides. So you've actually got a mixture of genuine sadness, genuine death, and everything else, but enough of a mockery to the people who know what they're talking about, that would say, hang on, the whole thing's got to be fake as this. And that is why I hold back and say, I'm not saying anything about the things I can't comment on. What I'm saying is, at this minute here, 50 odd minutes, whatever it was, at 1 minute and 1 hour and 7 minutes in the car, these points here are bullshit from what I know of thousands of shots of rifles, shotguns, and pistols, right? So all I'm basically getting at here is, besides remembering to have discernment, is the fact that most conspiracy theories in this world are bullshit. I believe they're seeded on purpose by a mixture of people who want to get notoriety for creating something, for people who are junkies themselves who want to create. Imagine it, like if you could create cocaine at home. If you're a junkie for crack and you can create crack at home yourself, you probably do that. Well, it's the same thing. They're a reality junkie, and also mixed in with a conspiracy theorist, non-discerning conspiracy theorist. So if they get the opportunity to create more of their crack at home, they might do it. But I'd say it's more likely that the people who have something to hide from conspiracies that are true, of which there are countless examples in history, and if you go into any legal office and say, right, because it's public record, give me all the crimes in the last year that have been conspiracy to commit fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, you will find, no matter where you live in the world, there are fucking tons, right? So conspiracies happen every day. Conspiracies get uncovered by someone having a theory of something having been committed. That might be an investigator. It might be someone's family. It might be a victim themselves, right? That decides to check in on a conspiracy theory and then prove them true. Edward Snowden would be a conspiracy theorist who then dug further at his own work to get all the facts and then prove them to be true. And what happened to him? What did Obama do to him? What did Trump fail to do? They're both in the same side. I would say that Al Gore years ago in that old election where he lost against Bush, I would say that he would have won if he'd actually contested it. Why didn't he contest it? Because it makes no difference. Because the difference between him getting in and Bush getting in was very little, although Bush might have gone to more war. The same as right now. The difference between Trump and Biden is almost nothing for the common man. Almost nothing when it comes to riling up the supporters to radicalize on the streets and think that they're, to defend their champion. Both of them might be on the same side. Even Trump, who's the maverick, who's the outsider. Because you've got to remember, as in one of my previous videos a few days ago, it's division, within dichotomy, multiplied by fear, and these things are all mixed in together. So just because one guy is your enemy doesn't mean your other guy's your friend. The enemy of my enemy is my friend quote is the biggest load of bollocks cliche I've ever heard, because it's more often that the enemy of your enemy is still just another enemy. It's just another dickhead who's no good for your life. So I would say that most of these things are seeded by people like in your Epstein situation, anything that hangs off the Pedogate situation, the truth of the Pedogate situation, is going to be bullshit, because they want to discredit the things that are true within that narrative. And what better way to do it than the boy who cried wolf? If you give a bunch of non-discerning people who associate with discerning people, so let's say that's 90% non-discerning with 10% discerning at best, then you're going to have a whole bunch of people who are going to discredit the people who bother to do the research, bother to look into it without a lens of bias, right? So I would say that in the case of the New Zealand one, my take on that one is that both things happened. People died. I don't know how. Maybe they were paid. Maybe they weren't paid. Maybe it was just a guy came in and slaughtered it using a mixture of guns. We don't see the full video. We only see the parts that are faked. But the parts that are faked are enough to make the people who have the evidence that might actually exist to believe that all those things were true, and that they won't even look at that video. Why? Because it's a desecration on the memory of the people who died and the friends of those people that they know. So how am I going to challenge that? I don't want to make my friends sad. I don't want to bring up things. But at the same time, I'm not going to allow myself not to look at those things. I don't want to be looking at these things. I'm not going to look at it again. I can see from what my knowledge is on the subject that there's 3 areas in that video that are 100% bullshit, and I will never believe them. But at the same time, those might have been seeded for me on purpose, for people like me to think that the whole thing didn't happen, or to discredit me so that my opinion now looks, there's Craig, that raving loon again, when I speak to anyone about it. So I'll only probably talk about it on my videos here, which hopefully, for the most part, only get watched by people with an open mind. Although we can see the other day that dumb arse Kiwi, what was his name again? I can't remember what his handle was. It was something retarded. The algorithm has started to, well, I went from a phase of being able to delete videos to allow new videos to be seen more by getting rid of the old ones. That might have been an effect on the algorithm. I don't know. But what also seemed to happen is I was going through a few months ago, where one of the channels was starting to get more views. The cryptodiversity one was going way down, and to the point where almost no one looks at it now, or gets maybe notified about it. And then I noticed recently, in the last month, I started getting a lot more trolls on. You'll probably see the automatic filtering of these, but because I don't filter people, I let the trolls have their say, and again, I fight information with information. But they were actually letting through. I do delete the spam ones, the ones that are like, go to this poker site or whatever it is, or use this trader, because I don't want people to get scammed on my channel. People who might not have the discernment to see through the scammers. But I noticed that YouTube are letting a lot more bullshit stuff through. I also noticed that some of my comments, Silly Wabbit, that's his Twitter name, Wabbit, his name is on the YouTube. His comment, fairly good comment, nothing to censor on there, got censored. Now, not only did it shows up on the feed at the top, the little bell icon, but it doesn't show up in the filtered area. It doesn't show up in my dashboard anywhere. I could see his comment though. I can only read the start of it. I can only probably see it fully if I enabled emails. I don't want to do that. But yeah, this is how their filtering is working. Their fuckery is just, this is why I say, please go on to LBRY. Don't bother subscribing on YouTube. There is no point. Both channels are, one channel, Red Pill Diaries, is on both, what's it called, BitTube, and also on, I'm going to try out YouTube as well, if it is blockchain backed, but I don't know if it is. I can't be bothered with DTube anymore, but LBRY, one channel is on there, the Red Pill Diaries. I'm not sure if Cryptoversity is on both, because it was quite complicated doing that, with logging in and keeping cookies. It was making a lot of things go wrong, so I just did the Red Pill Diaries one. Subscribe on there anyway. YouTube is a lost cause. There's no point even moaning about stuff. I don't monetize for a reason, although that I know that also affects the algorithm, because they're not making money out of me doing any videos, so there's no point. But yeah, when it comes to, let's get back away from that side. When it comes to these major false flags, your Sandy Hooks and your 9/11s of the world, it could be they're 100% true, and what they have done is seeded the internet with false information to make us all look stupid, right? This is, sometimes Occam's razor can deliver multiple things, because the most likely scenario, there might be 3 equally likely scenarios. In the case of 9/11, the equally likely scenarios is that the videos seeded afterwards are themselves false. It could be that everything seeded before is what's false. The things where it's on the news. Well, people have captured stuff on the news. The news is what it is, and when you slow down them, you see the glitches. You see the possible use of early. I don't know what the tool, the Photoshop for video tool, is called, but it was called years ago. There was one called Adobe Premiere, which I was taught to use years ago during my degree. I'm not sure what they have nowadays to do things like deep fakes or to render stuff. I'm sure it'd be much more complex, but I'm pretty sure the government would have had things like this years ago, given the fact that they always have technology before we do, before it goes mainstream. And our cell phones being a prime example of this, for anyone that doubts that. So I'm going to leave it there, I think. The 9/11 situation, again, if you're unsure on that yourself, don't even focus on the Twin Towers. Don't even focus on the passport sitting on top of the rubble. this few thousand degrees furnace that happened that was able to bend steel or compromise the integrity of steel, which, by the way, only happens just before you get to the melting point. You know what I mean? It's so if you ever done any metal work in your lives and used these big like a massive anvil that comes down and goes so you can flatten steel, you'll notice that once it actually starts to cool even below the glowing point, it starts to get hard to start to bash them, to make it, for it to be malleable at all. You got to put it back in again to get it to glowing point. It quickly gets this integrity back. So the experiments done online by some guy who's a bit of a dickhead, but he does the experiments anyway, and he's showing you, it's only a little bit hotter. Come on, it's way hotter. It's hundreds of degrees hotter, and he showed you that the metal starts to bend. Well, show me it when it's not glowing. Anyway, that's the things that I don't believe are solely based upon Building 7 and the specialists who I've asked, those that don't have family. My one friend in China, actually, what he was also saying is he doesn't know anybody in the industry at all in China. He said the Chinese don't have an axe to grind like this. In their own conversation, they're going to look at things quite openly. It's not going to be, yeah, Americans, they're all full, look at them. It's purely from a scientific point of view, from what they know as an architect, as a civil engineer, as whatever it might be. No one believes it in that country. No one believes that I know that is in New Zealand or is in the UK that works in the industry, and is also a pure logical person, someone who doesn't allow even if they know someone, they don't let their emotions get involved. I was surprised by my one friend in Texas, actually, but then again, that comes from two sides. It comes from maybe knowing people, and it also comes from the narrative. To know that your government that you really trust in and believe in might have lied to you about something so profoundly awful, it's going to make you question your whole reality. So that's a big ask, and I understand that. So I'm not gonna beat him up on that one. But I know what I'm seeing, and what I'm seeing could be bullshit. It could be next level. It could be parallel bullshit in parallel with real happenings. The Sandy Hook thing could be completely true with a few of these planted videos, like the guy smiling and stuff like that. You just don't know. So I always say err on the side of caution, and never say that you know for sure, because we don't even know what our reality is. We don't even know where we are. we have no idea the nature of our reality, and how the fuck can we, for organizations that have had unlimited wealth from our taxes, to create things to fool us because they are the parasite class, and it's there. They have a I always forget this bloody word, not an agenda, but when you have it's so annoying. I just thought of this word before and I can't remember it. Motive. When they have a motive, and their motive is to continue being fed by you, the people, to continue being validated, their whole existence to be validated. When governments only existed in the past because we didn't have the technology that we do. If we had the tech that we do now 300 years ago, you would not have governments now. They just don't need to exist. We have them because they've been made to exist. The same as many of these things that we were talking about. What was that thing we were talking about the other day? There was something in the kitchen that didn't need to exist. What the fuck was it again? And I can't remember. There was something we were talking about the other day about little trinkets and there you go, doilies. My mum's got little doilies in our house, things sit on top of a doily. Why does it sit on top of a doily? It just gathers more dust. It doesn't need to exist. It exists because it used to exist when ownership of anything was, look, everyone, look at my wee doily, look at my little trinket on the mantelpiece. Because they had so little, they didn't have TVs and shit like that. It was like, wow, owning it. Craig owns this doily and trinket. Oh, wow, he's so proud of it. And those things carried on getting produced, even though they're fucking pointless, useless things to have around your house. It's the clutter that most people fill their houses with. It's just shite. I'd go so far as to even see the Christmas tree. It makes me feel good, and it's not dug out of the ground. But and it's part of the nostalgia that I was brought up with, and I haven't got completely over the things that I became addicted to in life, like meat, or things that that my nostalgia and my upbringing makes me think back. It gives it's comfort thoughts, you know what I mean? Things like that. So anyway, I'm going to leave it there for the second or third time that I've said that, and say that I do believe aspects and don't believe aspects of everything, and I will not shut anything out. I will not dismiss anything, and I'm also not going to be emotionally manipulated to not look into anything. All right, cheers and bye.